Welcome to another episode of BHP Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I'm sitting down and speaking with award-winning mystery writer and travel journalist, Brian Silverman. Brian is a career writer. He's had a wonderful career writing articles about food and travel, and now he's written his first novel, which was published in May of 2021, called Freedom Drop. It is a mystery novel. I truly enjoyed speaking with him and learning about his journey and about the characters of his book. So let's just get right to it. Let's welcome our newest book club member, award-winning mystery writer and journalist, Brian Silverman. Brian, thank you so much for being a part of the book club and being on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. I'm excited to talk to you because I know that you are a career writer. You've got a lot of publications out there, short stories, and I know that the novel Freedom Drop was your first novel. So I'm interested in your writing journey. It sounds more like a career than a journey.
Yeah, it's pretty much been a career. I've been writing almost all my adult life in various different forms, mostly nonfiction, but I've written about sports, music, travel, food, many different things from magazines. I've done books, and the fictions come to me later. But I think it's all part of a process. A journey it's all part of the same thing I'm writing all the time.
So if somebody is thinking, hey, I want to write articles for a magazine, or I think that would be kind of cool. How do you go about doing that? Do you just write the article and then submit it? How do you do that?
Well, I have to say, it's not very easy right now. Things have changed. I've been around a long time. Sadly, there are not as many magazines as there used to be. So the opportunities are not there like they were 15 years ago even. So now the best opportunities are on websites and different venues that you can find online. The sad thing is though that, because there's so many of them, the pay for them is very low. So it's pretty hard to make a career out of writing for online journals.
I didn't even think about that.
A lot of writing to make a living. You usually have to supplement it with something else. That's my experience now. But back in the day, there were many more opportunities. They paid better, but things change.
Yeah, I didn't even think about there not being as many magazines as there used to because everything's online now. Right. So yeah, I didn't even think about that. So let's talk about how you go from writing these articles and doing all these different things to actually saying, okay, I'm going to write this novel. How long did that take you?
Well, it's been brewing for a long time. And when I was younger, I did some fiction, short stories, and I wrote some books that never really were very successful. And I wrote right out of college, I was a screenwriter and did a lot of that. So I've always had a tune to stories. But then I stopped because I had a family. I got married, had a family, and I needed to try to find a way to make some money. So I worked for magazines. I wrote some books. For many years, I was the senior writer for the New York City guidebooks for Fromers. I wrote all their guidebooks about New York City. But I've always been interested in mysteries, which is what Freedom Drop means. And I've read so many different mysteries, different writers, and my wife always would urge me to try to write a mystery novel, mainly because a lot of my nonfiction style she thought would be conducive to maybe a hard-boiled or a noir type book. And I'd say, no, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then finally, as I was telling you earlier, when the outlets kind of dried up for my other writing, because of what's changed in the technology with everything being online now, I said, okay, now's the opportunity for me to try something different. And like I said, I always liked mystery. So I wrote a short story in a setting that took place in the Caribbean. And because I'm very familiar with the Caribbean, a lot of my writing was travel writing, and I was based in the Caribbean. I did a lot. I've been to all the islands, and I covered a lot of culture and different events in the Caribbean. So I was familiar with it. And I took a New Yorker, which I also am familiar with by doing all the New York City guidebooks. So I'm familiar with New York too, and I combined them in this story. So the first story I wrote was picked up by a magazine called Mystery Tribune. The story was titled Breadfruit, which is a Caribbean dish. It's a fruit that grows in the Caribbean. And I was very fortunate. That first story was selected to be included in the Best American Mystery Stories of 2018, which I have a copy here. This is the book. It was edited by Louise Penny, very famous mystery writer. So after that, it gave me motivation to write more of the same. And I wrote a series of stories with the same character based on the same island that I created, Caribbean island. And but the ultimate goal was to turn these stories into a novel. And once I familiarized myself with the characters and the setting, I got going on the island, and the result was Freedom Drop. So.
And Freedom Drop was published in 2021. How did you go about publishing it? Did you do it yourself? Did you get a publisher?
I did it in a collaboration with the publisher of Mystery Tribune. It's a very good mystery magazine, and he was the one that first published me. And he's published a number of my stories, been a very good source for me. And I went to him and I said, why don't we, you have this brand, Mystery Tribune, and you've been doing your magazine. Let's see about, would you like to do a novel under your brand? And he agreed to do it. So Mystery Tribune is the publisher. It's their first novel. They've been doing magazines, but this was their first plunge into novels to break out into something different.
So does Freedom Drop, do you see yourself doing more stories around those characters, or developing all new characters and doing another book?
Well, right now, the response to Freedom Drop has been they want more of the same characters. They'd like to see a sequel. So I'm slowly working on a follow-up to Freedom Drop. The same characters, same island, another mystery. But I have written stories, mysteries that have been published that are not with the same characters. I have one coming out in a few weeks. It's called Where the Happy People Go. That'll be published in a magazine called Voucherin. This past winter, I had another one published in a Canadian magazine called Mystery Weekly that had nothing to do with the characters that I'm familiar with, a different story. So yeah, I'm doing different things, but it seems to be that the characters I created that are in Freedom Drop, there seems to be a good response to doing more of that.
So you had mentioned earlier that when you were right out of college, you wrote screenplays. Do you see Freedom Drop as being a screenplay?
Absolutely. It would make a very good movie. So if any movie producers out there
are listening,
you need a copy.
Right?
Netflix, where are you? No, I think it would be. In fact, a lot of people have mentioned that. I didn't write it as a movie. I wrote it as a novel. But so many things now translate to the screen, and this would be an easy translation to the screen.
And so tell me about the characters. As much as you want to share with us, I'm interested in your Freedom Drop characters, especially if you're working on a sequel. So tell us, who are the main characters in Freedom Drop?
The main character is a man named Glenn Bonfiglio. He's a New Yorker who has left the city. It was a traumatic event that affected his life, and he was married with a family, and he, in a way, deserted his family after this event in the city affected him so much, and he started a new life on this small Caribbean island I created called St. Pierre, which is basically a composite of a number of islands I've been to. And there, he was a bar owner in New York, and he opens a bar on the island, a sports bar. And he befriends, an islander befriends him, who helps build the bar, and they're partners. So the two of them, well, Glenn is the main character. His friend Tubby works on the bar and also gets involved in some of the crimes he's trying to solve. Now, he's not a detective, Glenn. He's not a cop. He has no experience. He has a sense of obligation based on what happened to him in New York to do things for people, because he has some guilt over what happened in New York and how he left the city. And in fact, the backstory to him, the mystery about why he left his family, is in a story I wrote called Land of Promise. And that one was published by Mystery Tribune and was selected to be in this year's Best American Mystery and Suspense Stories 2021, which was just published a couple of weeks ago, edited by Alifair Burke. And so if you read Freedom Drop and are curious about how come he left New York, you'll find out if you read that story, Land of Promise, that's in that anthology.
So he's not a detective, he's not a police officer, he has no background, but he finds himself solving these mysteries?
Yeah, he gets caught up in them. He knows he's an amateur. He just goes on his instincts and learns as he goes along with this. He doesn't, there's no, he also, there's the police on the island where he has a love-hate relationship with, and they have a love-hate relationship with him, but it's a friendly one. It's not that hostile, and they cooperate with each other to a point. Yeah, he doesn't have any experience, but that's part of the fun of him trying to figure this all out, I think.
So have you made the book into an audiobook?
Yes, it is an audio.
So it's on audio too.
Yes,
That's
it's
really
available
cool.
on audio.
So
yes.
You've got
I didn't do it.
Oh, you found somebody to do it for you?
Yes, there's an actor who reads the book, but it's available as an audio.
So how long until you believe, because this book came out in May, so it hasn't been out that long. You said the reception's been really, really good and positive and people want more. So when do you anticipate that sequel being available?
Well, at the rate I'm going, it might be a while, but I could pick up my pace, I hope. I hope I can get to pick it up pretty well. But it's been, real life sometimes has distractions and, slows things down, whatever. But hopefully we'll get settled more and I'll get into a better routine where I can devote more time to it. So I'm hoping within the next year or so.
So I'm pretty sure the publisher is helping you market the book, I'm guessing, but how are you marketing the book? And, it's a niche audience, right? Somebody who wants to read mystery novels. So how do you find your audience?
Well, that's the challenge these days. In the old days, when I came out of college, the first thing I did was work for a publisher, but it was a different world back then. And, the marketing was done by the publishing company. If they published a book, they would promote it. Now it's very hard to get the publishers to promote it, so most of these authors have to take it upon themselves to self-promote. And it's new to me. I'm not, to be honest, all of this doesn't come natural to me. Some can do it better than others. They don't mind the self-promotional aspect, but you have to do it and, to get the word out, because it's a crowded field, and to try to stand out, yeah, you got to do all that social media stuff, whether it's, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. Get your own website, and see what you can do, and also do shows like yours right here, which hopefully reach people and get some exposure for your work.
Right, and helps you connect you with readers and find your audience, because they're out there, right?
Yeah.
There are people
they're definitely out there.
There are people that
it's just trying to get to them.
Yeah, it's trying to get to them and trying to find them and then put you two together, because they're definitely out there. So, Brian, it sounds like you have a lot going on. This book came out not that long. You still continue to write short stories. Is there anything else that you're working on?
That's it. I mean, really, between the stories and trying to figure out a sequel to this book, that's what I'm doing. Like today, I'm working on the sequel, but then I got an idea for a story. And so I would like to get this story done, if I can do it quick, and then get back to the sequel. Because sometimes when you get ideas, you want to get to them right away. And the story you can do usually doesn't take as long, especially if it's not too complicated. No, I'm not I'm not a prolific writer. I plod along. Some writers are gifted and they can just, do 10 or 12 stories, every 2 months. I don't work that way.
So how do you decide if it's going to be a short story, or how did you decide that Freedom Drop was going to be a novel, right, and not a short story?
Right. Well, I think just the basis of the mystery, or the idea of the plotting, if it's just a simple, it's the format. I mean, Freedom Drop I had all along to be a novel. I brought different factions in that book. His daughter comes to visit him, and that's a big part of the story, along with the mystery. He hasn't seen his daughter in 2 years. She's never come to the island. So there are other elements that you layer upon the story to fill out the novel. Whereas the story, you spend much less time on description and detail as you would in the novel. And you just get right to the point, really. I mean, it's got to be wrapped up in 5,000 words, pretty much, the story. So that's how. But I like I said, I had a grand plan all along. When I started writing the stories, it was to turn it into a novel.
And so the short stories, how often or how long does it take you to put together a short story?
Well, some take longer than others. Like the ones I wrote that weren't part of these St. Pierre's the island, the St. Pierre short stories, I call them. Those took longer because they were a little more complicated. But the other stories I've written that are not with that character, they have been coming quicker. I can do them in a couple of weeks, whereas the other ones might take a month or two to do that. That's a long time for a short story, but like I said, I'm not very prolific. I plod along. So.
How do you come up with a mystery that isn't predictable?
Well, it's hard. I mean, the thing is, so many mysteries it's variations on the same theme with mystery. So many have been done over and over. The challenge is try to find a new approach to it. That's what I look for. I mean, whether it's somebody gets killed, somebody is accused of something, you have to clear the name, whatever. You've seen it a million times on TV, on Law and Order, where, on so many, or if you've read mysteries. So you just have to find a different way to tell that mystery, I think. It's very hard to find a really new, fresh, actual mystery, but they're out there. Some people can do it. And it's a challenge, though, I think.
Do you use misdirection in your plot to try to take your readers down a different way than the way that they really should be going, for kind of like a plot twist?
Yes, I did that in Freedom Drop. I did that, yes. I tried to keep people, you want to keep people guessing.
Right, especially if it's a mystery up until the end. You want to keep people guessing.
I mean, if I know who the who the mystery is solved on the first chapter, then what's the fun in that, right?
So when you were writing the book, did you always know the result of the mystery, or did it kind of come out in the writing?
Comes out in the writing, for me. I don't outline. A lot of writers outline the whole thing. They know exactly where they're going. And I've tried that, but and then when I do that, I find that constricting, and it doesn't allow the freedom to do new things because you stick too closely to the script. So I'm the seat of the pants. So I'll get an idea for a scene, which is why it takes me longer, I think. And I have to figure out what's going to happen in the next scene. And the good thing is, these are drafts. They can change as they go along. But I have no idea a lot of times where things are going until I get to the end.
So Freedom Drop was a mystery up until you finished writing it, because you didn't know basically how it was going to end.
No, I had some ideas, but there were changes along the way, and I took different turns all along the way. So, yeah.
I think writing mystery, it would be challenging. So kudos for being able to write mystery. And even in short stories, I always had a problem with short stories because I want to give so much detail. And you're right, in a short story, you can't spend a lot of time on the detail in a short story because you've got to get to the point. So I always struggled with the short stories.
Yeah.
And try to make it so that it's still interesting. Right? That was always hard for me. It was easier for me to write when I didn't have a limit.
Yeah.
And then the story could unfold on its own.
Well, I think, writers that write novels that then go back and try to write short stories seem to struggle because of that. But I think if you come out of the short story and go the other way, now you have to figure out how to write 300 pages as opposed to, or 90,000 words as opposed to 5,000 words. So you don't want to, there's challenges whichever way you come at it, whether you're coming at it from short stories or if you're going to short stories coming from novels.
So because you wrote a lot of articles, you said travel, food, and other things, would you ever write a nonfiction book, maybe on travel or food?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I've done that. I had a website before while I was doing other things called Fried Neck Bones and Some Home Fries. And it was a journal about a group I had here in New York. We would go out and eat at restaurants all over the city that specialized in food, ethnic food mainly, mom and pop places. And I would chronicle what we ate in the group. And that would have been a nice book if I ever did it, especially with the pictures. But then the food blogging got so crazy, I kind of left that. But it was fun when I did.
Yeah, there's a lot of travel books out there, especially if you know a lot about the area, and it sounds like you do. A travel book might be in your future, nonfiction travel book. You never know.
They got to start traveling again.
Yeah, well, it's almost time, right? They say it's time. I'm ready. So absolutely. You know what, Brian, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing the story. Tell me the name of the book again.
Freedom Drop. Can I show it?
Absolutely.
It's Freedom Drop. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere, any outlet, Target, Walmart, anywhere you can get it. It's also it's in paperback, Kindle, and audio version.
And then do you have a website?
Yes, BrianSilvermanWrites.com.
Writes as in W-R-I-T-E.
W-R-I-T-E-S.
Perfect. Yes. Brian, thank you so much. All the information will be in the podcast description so that you'll be able to get your edition of Freedom Drop. Again, Brian, thank you so much for being the newest member to the book club and being on the podcast. And so I expect when the sequel comes out, you'll come back and share it with us.
I hope so. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Okay.
Thank you for listening to another episode of BHP Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. I just wrapped up with author, journalist, Brian Silverman, and we talked about his novel, Freedom Drop. Freedom Drop is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold. It's available on Kindle, audiobook, hardback, and paper. I enjoyed speaking with him, and if you are a mystery novel person, you will love this book. be sure to go get your copy today. If you are an author and you would like to join our book club and feature your book on the podcast, it's really easy. Go to my website, brightheadedpublishing.com, brightheadedpublishing.com. Go to the contact section, drop me a note, reach out. I'll reach out to you. And before you know it, you're going to be the next author on the podcast promoting your book. And hopefully we will find readers for you, because ultimately that is our goal, to connect authors and readers. I thank you so much for listening. I truly couldn't do it without you. I truly appreciate you. Next week we'll have another author, but until then, keep writing.